You have probably heard this before. People told you that you are naive, that you believe too much too easily, that anyone with the right words and the right tone of voice can move you in whatever direction they want. Maybe they said it casually, like it was a harmless observation. But you felt the weight of it. You felt it settle somewhere deep in that quiet place where all the things people say about us eventually land. Like there was something fundamentally flawed in the way you processed the world. Like everyone else was living behind glass, solid and protected, and you were out in the open, absorbing everything. I want to say something to you before we go any further. The problem is not that you feel too much or believe too readily. The problem is that what you carry has been misread your entire life. There is an enormous difference between being naive and having a nervous system that is wired for deep social connection. And once you understand that difference, everything begins to shift. Think for a moment about what the word influenceable actually implies. The word itself functions as a verdict, as though you are clay in the hands of whoever happens to arrive with a firm opinion. But what if what people have been calling your influenceability is actually a neurological system calibrated at a higher sensitivity to social information? What if your brain is not weak? What if it is simply more responsive? Neuroscience has a term for this. It is called elevated social plasticity. It is not a character flaw, it is a configuration. Think about the difference between a basic temperature sensor and a precision instrument. The precision instrument registers variations that the basic sensor cannot even detect. That does not make the precision instrument inferior. It makes it more capable and more demanding in terms of the environment it requires to function well. You are not someone who is easy to influence because you lack intelligence. You are more affected by the world around you because your brain is, at every moment, processing more of it. There is a first layer to this that is worth understanding clearly. Your brain has an amplified response to what researchers call social validation signals. When someone speaks with confidence, with warmth, with the kind of certainty that fills a room, your nervous system reads that as reliable information, not because you are irrational, but because for thousands of years, confidence and authority were genuine indicators of who held survival knowledge in a group. That was a reasonable shortcut for a long time. In real life, this shows up in a very specific way. When someone presents an idea with absolute certainty, something inside you begins to yield before you have even analyzed the content of what they are saying. That is not weakness, that is speed. The cost is that you can be moved by people who simply appear confident, even when they are wrong. The benefit, which almost no one ever acknowledges, is that you learn with a depth that more rigid people cannot access. You absorb perspectives in ways that take others years to approximate. You are genuinely changed by experience. That is not a liability. That is a form of intelligence. The second layer is what psychology describes as an elevated need for relational coherence. People with this profile experience something close to physical discomfort when they are in conflict, when they feel misaligned with the people around them, when the social atmosphere in a room is unstable. This is not insecurity in the shallow sense of the word. It is an internal system that has prioritized harmony as a condition for functioning. Think of it like a processor that needs a stable environment to run efficiently. Conflict, for this kind of system, is noise. And the brain does what it always does with noise. It tries to reduce it, sometimes by agreeing before it is certain, sometimes by yielding before it is ready. The cost is visible. You leave conversations having said yes when you meant something else entirely. You find yourself holding opinions that do not quite belong to you because the effort of maintaining your own felt too costly in that particular moment. The benefit, again rarely spoken of, is that you move through complex social environments with a fluency that is genuinely uncommon. You can enter into different perspectives without resistance. You can hold multiple realities at once. That is high-level cognitive empathy. It is what makes exceptional mediators, therapists, leaders, who people actually trust. And living this way, I want to acknowledge honestly, is harder in certain environments. The modern world is designed in ways that put particular pressure on exactly this kind of system. Algorithms built to locate what moves you emotionally and then use that information against you. People who have learned, consciously or not, that projecting confidence is a currency that works especially well with you. Workplaces that reward whoever speaks loudest, not whoever thinks deepest. Social environments that interpret your openness as an invitation. The exhaustion you carry is not drama, it is real overheating. Imagine a processor running at maximum capacity because the external environment never stops sending data, never pauses, never gives the system time to clear. It is not that you are too fragile to manage. It is that the volume of processing you do in a single day is simply larger than most people can imagine exists. The isolation you sometimes seek is not rejection of the world. It is a biological boundary being honored. When you need silence, that is not a flaw expressing itself. That is a system asking for what it needs to reset. But here is something that almost no conversation about this subject ever says out loud. This trait would not exist if it had not served something essential. Evolution does not preserve characteristics across millennia without reason. People with this level of social sensitivity were and continue to be indispensable to any functioning group. They perceive tension before it becomes conflict. They read the emotional temperature of a room with a precision that others simply do not possess. They anticipate needs, catch subtle signals, build bridges between opposing perspectives without anyone asking them to. In any human structure, whether a family, a team, a community, someone needs to be the fine sensor. Someone needs to be the one who notices what is happening beneath what is being said. You are not the weak link in any group you have ever belonged to. You are the most delicate and precise instrument that group has. The confusion has always been in treating a precision instrument as though it were a hammer. There is an image I want to leave with you. Think of a plant that thrives in specific conditions, not because it is fragile, but because it was built for particular levels of light, particular soil, particular moisture. Place that plant in the wrong environment, and it will diminish not because something is wrong with it, but because the environment was never its. Place it where it belongs, and it grows in ways that other plants simply cannot replicate. It becomes something remarkable. You do not need to be fixed. You need the right soil. That means people who do not treat your openness as a resource to extract from. Environments that do not require you to be permanently different from what you are. Conversations where your capacity to receive other perspectives is recognized as a gift, not exploited as a gap. The problem was never who you are. The problem was far too often where you were standing. So what does any of this mean in practice? There is no list of steps here. What exists is a reorientation. The first is beginning to treat your own internal system with the seriousness it deserves. That means recognizing that not every environment has earned access to your level of openness. That some people, when they speak with confidence, are simply speaking with confidence. That you are allowed to listen without immediately reorganizing what you think. The second is learning to treat silence as a genuine practice, not as avoidance. Silence is where your system begins to separate what is yours from what has been placed inside you by someone else. It is where your own voice becomes loud enough to hear above everything you have absorbed. That distinction matters more than most people realize. The third is building, slowly and without pressure, a perimeter around who you are. Not a wall, not armor. A perimeter. The difference is that walls refuse everything. Perimeters let through what you choose. And that act of choosing becomes possible once you understand that what you carry is not a defect. It is a capacity that asks for care proportional to its depth. You do not need to change who you are. You need to learn to be who you are in environments that deserve it. If this resonated with you, You may have already noticed that there is another question sitting just beneath everything we have covered here. Why do some people, even after understanding all of this, even after recognizing their own patterns clearly, continue returning to the same cycles? Why is self-knowledge not always enough to change behavior? There is a specific neurological explanation for that, and it fundamentally changes the way you approach the cycle itself. If you want to understand that deeper layer, the next video was made exactly for that.